Pecan Corner. I'm Tina, and today I'm going to make a mincemeat cake. I've been baking all day today. I've got a little event that I'm going to this weekend that I'm taking some bread to. I sell some of my bread that I bake, and so I've got some cooling and some rising, and some of it already cooled off and packaged up. I'm going to use my green tomato mincemeat that I made and canned the other day, and this cake is so good. And I tasted the mincemeat, and wow, it's yummy. It's really good. I'm real happy with it. This cake is very moist. You can make it ahead of time, and so it's a good keeper like that. I'm going to start off by I'm going to make my own buttermilk to use in this recipe. The last time I bought buttermilk, I looked at the ingredients, and there are so many things in there that are not milk and not necessary for buttermilk that I said, phooey, I'll just use regular milk and put some vinegar in it, and that'll clabber it, and it'll do the same thing that buttermilk would. There's no difference in it, but you do have to let it sit for a little bit before you use it. It needs to sit for about a good 5 minutes. Like, I've got a cup and a half of milk here, and I'm putting about 2 tablespoons of white vinegar in there. You can also use lemon juice. All right. Now then, I've got my pan, or you need to use either a tube pan or you can use a bundt pan. The original recipe said to line a tube pan with wax paper or parchment and use that. So if you're at all concerned about it sticking, do that. But if you do use a tube pan, be sure that you set it inside something else, because with that removable bottom, some of the oil in this cake will run out of it and get all over your oven, and as I discovered the first time that I made it. So today I'm going to use a bundt pan. So I've got it greased and floured, and it's sitting there ready for me to put this in. All right, I'm going to start by putting my flour. I've got 3 cups of flour. One and a half cups of sugar. A teaspoon of salt. And when I'm baking, I try to use salt from a salt box instead of the kosher salt that we normally use for seasoning, because it measures different. The larger pieces of the kosher salt cause it to measure differently. So I tend to use regular iodized or non-iodized salt, but the regular old-fashioned kind, because that's what most of our recipes originated using. Okay, this is 1 teaspoon of salt. Nearly at the end of this little box. Oops. All right. Let's stir that up just a little bit. Oh, my baking soda. Nearly forgot. That's pretty important. It won't rise without it. This uses baking soda, not baking powder. When you have buttermilk in something, you're nearly always going to use baking soda with it. All right, we're going to use 2 teaspoons of baking soda. Baking soda is pretty important. There's just lots of uses for it. It's even an ingredient in baking powder too. Get this all stirred up here. All right, next, we'll set that aside. And this is my mixing bowl. And in this, I'm going to use 1 cup of mayonnaise. The mayonnaise is going to provide the oil in this recipe, because that's pretty much what mayonnaise is. So you're not using Miracle Whip, and you don't want to use light mayonnaise. I'm going to use regular mayonnaise, which is made basically which is whipped oil. There. Right. We're going to add the buttermilk to this. Let that sit for a couple more minutes. See how that was kind of chunky? All of that clabber. That's basically what buttermilk is. It's the soured milk. Okay. Alright, I'm going to take this over to my KitchenAid mixer, and I'm going to blend the 2 of these together, and then I'll come back and I'll add the rest of my ingredients. Alright, that was very fast. Alright, next I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of orange marmalade. This is a marmalade that I made. This is actually a peach marmalade, but it's got enough orange peel in it that it's going to work just fine in this recipe. There's 1, and there's 2, and it won't matter if you get a little bit of extra. If you don't have marmalade, you can also use some dried orange peel. Or some chopped fresh orange peel if that's all you have. Alright, we're going to use a tablespoon of rum flavoring. If you have rum, you can use a tablespoon of rum. But rum extract is what I have right here. Looks like that's going to make it. Empty the jar. Okay. It's a nice little bottle. I don't know if these extracts, Adam's extracts, even still comes in glass bottles. I'll save that one. Might be fun to do something with. All right. A teaspoon of vanilla. Got a great bargain on real vanilla at Big Lots, and they usually have really good buys on good brands of real vanilla extract. Okay, and then we'll mix this up together. The last time that I made this cake, I made it at Christmas time, and it was just a big hit. It's one of those that you don't think you're going to like it, and then you take a bite of it, and before you know it, you're just going back for thirds. Everybody kind of caught them by surprise. Mincemeat, I didn't know this, but mincemeat, it turns out, is as old. It goes back to Roman times. The apostles could have eaten mincemeat. That's how far back it goes. So apparently the old recipes preserved it so well that it's lasted all that time. And somehow or another, very early on, it got associated with Christmas, and it got associated with Catholics, to the point that during the religious wars in Europe, when Cromwell had deposed the king and taken over the country during the English Civil War, they banned mincemeat. They said it was too Catholic. So it's kind of a bigger deal than I ever realized. So I'm going to use 1 cup. See, about half a jar here is 1 cup of mincemeat. So I've got enough to do 2 of these cakes out of my pint jars. All right. Stir that up in there. And a cup of pecans. These pecans are some I shelled out myself from mine, and they're in pieces, small pieces, so I don't have to. Just kind of make sure I don't have any peels. Now, I'm going to put this in the pan and put it in the oven. My oven needs to be at 325. And this has to bake for 2 full hours. So it's not a quickie cake, that's for sure. But like I said, it's certainly well worth it. It is quick to mix up. You just have to be around for it to. It won't rise a lot. At least I hope it won't. I'm going to set it on like I said, I made it in 2 pans before. I haven't made it in a bun pan, but it's coming up pretty close to the top of this. So what I'll do is I'll set it on a sheet pan that's got sides on it, so that if it were to happen to overflow, there's something there to catch that. Paul's pretty happy because the way I'm going to serve this is I'm going to slice it up. I'm not taking it whole to this event, so we get to eat some of it after it's done. We don't have to smell it cooking and then let it sit there uneaten. All right. There we go. And I'm going to set my timer. I have a timer built in here. If you don't, get you one of those little things. The best baking secret I ever learned, and the thing that's made all the difference to me in being able to bake successfully, is learning to use the timer. I just always would think, oh, I'll remember, and I never did, and I burnt things all the time. I've learned now, even when all I'm doing is raising my bread, I set my timer, because if I'm not careful, I'll get sidetracked to doing something else, and I have actually let my bread sit and rise so long that it fell back down again, and I had to start over. So I love my timer now that I've gotten used to using it. Only thing I don't like about it is that it has to go forward a minute at a time, so it's kind of a little bit of a pain to set it, but alright, 2 hours, start. Alright, I'll be back after it's done so you can. And we're back. There is the cake. It's I use a cream cheese icing on this, and just use whatever your favorite one is, but wait to ice it until right before you're going to serve it. You can make the cake even a couple of days in advance, but don't ice it until right before you're going to serve it, because the icing doesn't hold up well on it. And there it is, nice